What if the individuals shaping our reality aren't smarter or luckier, but possess a profound, unshakable stillness within? Consider this. If true authority today rewards inner command over frantic effort, why are you caught in reaction while others dictate direction? Does it unsettle you to think the very chaos that drains you becomes fuel for another's ascent? Stoic philosophy long identified this. The ultimate adversary isn't the external world, but the untamed impulses within it. While many chase approval, lament injustice, or await motivation, those who operate from dominance have first mastered themselves. Their victory comes not through force, but through an immovable core. The raw truth that challenges the ego is this: without sovereignty over your own emotions, focus, and reactions, you remain a piece in someone else's strategic game. If this confronts you, it's a signal. You're at the precipice of growth, not comfort. If you choose to commit to clarity over chaos, to discipline over distraction, to a life steered by principle rather than impulse, consider subscribing to Stoic mindset mastery. Modern influence doesn't wear regalia. It has no need. It moves quietly through spaces, making choices that reshape landscapes without ever raising its tone. It's rarely the loudest voice. Often it's the one who speaks last, or elects not to speak at all. You won't always spot it in headlines, for genuine power requires no announcement. It is structured, embedded, the kind that operates behind data screens, strategic discussions, policies, and platforms, molding the future while the majority is lost in noise. But this power's true source isn't external. It originates in the internal realm. The capacity to stay still while others react, to observe while others hurry, to design while others flounder. This is where Stoicism thrives, not in ancient texts, but in the disciplined cognition of those who prepare before pressure ever knocks. They don't seek perfect conditions, they construct them. While others hunt for shortcuts, they are pouring the foundation, not to win the day, but to own the terrain tomorrow. Reflect on your moments of feeling rushed, provoked, or insecure. In those instances, who truly holds control? The world or you? The individual who owns their reactions owns the space. Stoicism doesn't advise fleeing from life. It instructs you to stand planted when the gale arrives. That is the authentic test. Not how vocal you can be in calm, but how steady you can remain when everything spins. As Marcus Aurelius reflected, your command is over your own mind, not external events. Grasp this and you uncover strength. That single insight separates the ruled from those who rule. The most potent minds are not reacting to the world. They are architecting it. They move with deliberation, not from confusion, but because they are sculpting each step. Their pace is intentional. Their silence is purposeful, and by the time you perceive their position, it has already become indispensable. That is the concealed seat of authority, built not on attention but on architecture, defended not by aggression but by foresight. Those who occupy it didn't demand the chair. They built the room that contains it. When you begin to perceive reality through this lens, everything transforms. Those who seem to perpetually succeed cease to appear fortunate. You notice the calm in their gaze, the quiet preparation underpinning their maneuvers. They don't await opportunities. They engineer environments where opportunities become inevitable. This isn't about luck, it's about lucidity, and that lucidity is earned through stillness. While the crowd reacts, they observe. While the clamor intensifies, they conserve. And when the moment to act arrives, they do so with a precision that mimics instinct, but is actually discipline masquerading as ease. Stoicism isn't about removing yourself from the world. It's about becoming the person who can stand within the world without being consumed by it. The chaos doesn't disappear, but it loses its hold on you. Inner command morphs into outer sway, and eventually you grasp something profound. You needn't overpower people to lead them. You only need to cease being led by your own volatility. As Epictetus noted, no one is free who is not master of themselves. That isn't mere philosophy, it's leverage. Once your emotions no longer possess you, those who try to provoke them lose their power. In that liberated space, you can think, decide, strategize. The terrain becomes yours. This applies beyond business or leadership. It permeates life. The hidden seat of authority manifests everywhere. In relationships, in decisions, in how you present yourself when hiding would be easier. The most formidable person in any room isn't the one who speaks first. It's the one who listens without rushing to reply, who waits not from apprehension but from acute awareness. By the time they move, the outcome is already molded. Power resides not in the moment you act, but in the 1,000 unseen moments you prepared for it. Seneca observed that luck is what occurs when preparation meets opportunity. Those operating from a Stoic core are perpetually preparing, calmly, quietly, without fanfare, because they don't need to prove readiness. They simply are. Most seek sway through attention, but attention is transient. What endures is structure. What endures is discipline. The quiet variety that can outlast panic, the kind that withstands criticism without flinching, the kind that builds systems while others chase validation. That is the bedrock of real power. Not charisma, not charm, but unwavering consistency. And behind that consistency lies a choice. Not to be led by every passing wave of emotion, but to stand firm like a lighthouse while the tides shift around you. This is why the Stoic mind prevails. Not through force, but through patience. Not by chasing control, but by becoming impervious to losing it. They let others react. They let others reveal their hand. And when the timing is correct, they move, never prematurely, because they comprehend the terrain they've constructed. By then, the rules are theirs. Carl Jung wrote that, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." That is the distinction. The Stoic doesn't await fate. They bring the unconscious into awareness. They live on purpose, not by accident. So next time you feel pressured to speak, to act, to prove, pause. Ask, what would a still mind do here? You are not merely reacting in a moment, you are constructing a terrain. And if you build it correctly, you won't need to chase the crown. You'll awaken one day to find it already rests upon you. Calmness is among the most misjudged qualities in contemporary power. We inhabit a world that often rewards the loud, the dramatic, the visibly intense. We're told energy is influence, that urgency signifies leadership. But there exists a different presence, the kind that doesn't shout, doesn't rush, and doesn't seek validation. It simply exists. And that presence is far more formidable. When you're near someone who doesn't flinch, who isn't performing, who listens more than they speak, something within you starts to attend. You don't know why, but you trust it. You sense they've already envisioned the worst and chosen not to panic. That isn't weakness. That's practiced inner discipline. That's stability. And it's the instrument of those trained to act, not react. The still mind is not an absent mind. It signifies command over the internal tempest. Once you reach that point, when you no longer require applause to feel confident, when you don't pursue noise to feel alive, you become harder to displace. You become the anchor in every room. Most people collapse into emotion unconsciously. They get swept into another's urgency, drama, or insecurity. But the Stoic does not. They remain planted. And that quiet steadiness generates space. It creates gravity. It draws people in, not because it's flashy, but because it's solid. Aristotle noted the wise person isn't troubled by what they cannot control. The wisest leaders understand this. You don't gain trust by controlling others. You gain it by controlling yourself when everyone else is losing their grip. Authentic stability isn't pretending emotions don't exist. It's choosing which ones merit your energy. It's the difference between someone who reacts to every minor comment and someone who pauses, weighs the moment, and speaks only when it carries weight. That kind of restraint doesn't go unnoticed. It provokes curiosity. Why isn't this person rattled? Why don't they need to dominate the conversation? Why do they feel somehow already resolved? The answer is straightforward. They've done the interior work. They've confronted the difficult questions in silence. They've faced their own insecurities in private, so when life tests them, they don't unravel. They absorb the moment and determine their response. That decision, the ability to respond with clarity when others are clouded, is what grants them power. There's something magnetic about an individual not easily impressed or intimidated, who doesn't chase popularity or strive to outshine. Their focus is internal. They're not trying to win the room. They're committed to winning their own mind. And the paradox is, that's precisely why the room listens. People desire to follow someone not constantly chasing external validation, someone who doesn't need the spotlight to affirm their worth. That stability gives others permission to breathe. It makes them feel secure. In leadership, that emotional safety is more potent than charisma. You'll witness this in every sphere of influence. Those who endure are those who can withstand pressure without becoming the pressure themselves. It's not that they don't feel, it's that they choose when and how to feel. As Carl Jung stated, the capacity to bear emotional tension measures a personality. That's what we observe. These minds aren't detached. They're regulated. They don't suppress emotion. They simply don't leak it indiscriminately. They hold it, they metabolize it, and then advance with precision, not panic. Most don't realize how exhausting it is to perpetually manage their image, their reactions, their need to be liked. The Stoic mind liberates itself from that cycle. It ceases performing and begins focusing, not on how things appear, but on how things are. Not on being impressive, but on being consistent. That consistency becomes their armor. People attempt to provoke them and fail. People try to rattle them and see no effect. Slowly, a shift occurs. That steadiness transmutes into power, not because it dominates, but because it refuses to be dominated. Consider the strongest individuals you've encountered. Likely, they weren't the loudest in the room. They weren't trying to convince you of anything. They were simply present, unmoved. You felt it. The calm, the clarity, the unspoken depth. That is what emotional stability manufactures. It forges invisible leverage. While others strive to force outcomes, the Stoic watches the current, adjusts their sail, and uses the winds to advance in silence. They don't fracture under criticism. They don't inflate under praise. They remain centered, grounded, intentional. That's why people follow them. Not because they promise everything will be fine, but because they conduct themselves as if they've already endured worse and emerged stronger. Their history lives in their posture. Their scars have become structure, and their silence resonates louder than another's shouting. Seneca expressed it well. If a person doesn't know to which port they sail, no wind is favorable. But the Stoic knows. They know their destination, so they don't panic when the wind shifts. They adapt. That adaptability is born from one thing: inner peace. Not the kind you find on retreat, but the kind you build amid difficult choices. The kind you earn by telling yourself the truth when it's uncomfortable. The kind that grows when you stop needing others to make you feel steady, because you've finally learned to generate that steadiness yourself. That's the authentic advantage. Emotional independence, not as rebellion, but as clarity. Not as isolation, but as self-respect. Once you possess that, you are no longer threatened by another's chaos. You can observe it without entering it. You can respond without defending, and that's when you become untouchable. Not because you fight back harder, but because you don't need to fight at all. In a world instructing you to be louder, stronger, more aggressive, the greatest rebellion is calm. True calm, not numbness, not disconnection, but powerful, deliberate restraint. The kind that holds a room without raising its voice. The kind that turns stillness into structure. Build that brick by brick and you won't need to prove yourself anymore. You'll simply become the one others turn to when everything else begins to fracture. The still mind doesn't win arguments, it ends them. Authority doesn't always arrive as commands or overt control. Sometimes it enters a space and says nothing, yet everything alters. You've sensed it before, that quiet tension when someone arrives with no need to prove themselves. No excessive charm, no forced dominance, just presence. And that presence, when shaped with intention, becomes more persuasive than any oration. You needn't tell people who you are when you've mastered how they perceive you. That's the edge so many overlook. They're busy performing, announcing, explaining, while the Stoic shapes perception without saying much at all. The contemporary Stoic doesn't manipulate, they calibrate. They understand every choice is a message, every pause a punctuation, every glance a decision. They don't tell you how powerful they are, they let you feel it. And what you feel isn't intimidation, it's clarity. You sense this is someone who knows themselves, and because they know, you begin to reflect not on them, but on yourself in their company. That shift is subtle but transformative. It's the chasm between demanding respect and evoking it effortlessly, between being loud and being seen. When people start to see you through a lens you've crafted, that perception becomes harder to challenge, to question, to ignore. Most squander energy trying to explain their value. They defend, they justify, they over-explain. But the Stoic comprehends something deeper. Value doesn't require a sales pitch when it's embodied. The moment you cease needing to convince others, you free yourself to become the person others naturally gravitate toward. Not because you asked them to, but because you gave them no reason not to. Perception, once intentionally shaped, becomes armor. Not because it blocks, but because it protects the framework. If people perceive you as composed, they treat you differently. If they see you as dependable, they interpret your silence as strategy, not absence. When they see you as necessary, they adjust their movements around yours. What's often forgotten is that you don't control others' perception by force. You do it through consistency. That's the invisible thread. You show up the same way, grounded, clear, deliberate, until the pattern writes its own narrative. Over time, people begin to expect your presence to feel a certain way. That expectation solidifies into identity. That identity becomes trust. Once people trust the version of you that you've consistently presented, they stop questioning. The perception hardens. That's where influence originates, not in the moment you speak, but in the image people already hold before you arrive. Carl Jung wrote that the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely, but once you do, your presence transforms. It stops being reactive and starts becoming directive. You're no longer echoing the world, you're shaping it. The Stoic doesn't chase image, they refine essence, and that essence becomes so potent, so rooted, that the world begins to notice, not because it's loud, but because it's undeniable. When people can't easily define you, they start to pay more attention. They lean in, they study. Eventually, they adjust their tone, their rhythm, even their confidence, because the manner in which you carry yourself quietly demands it. Reflect on how often someone's demeanor has altered a room's energy, not because they were forceful, but because they were aligned. That alignment isn't accidental. It's built through practice, reflection, and restraint. It's choosing not to react when provoked, It's learning when to speak and when to preserve silence. It's trusting that your value doesn't require constant defense. That's the interior work no one sees, but everyone feels. It doesn't manifest on stage. It manifests in posture, in tone, in the way your gaze doesn't dart when pressure mounts. That steadiness creates a perception of someone who doesn't merely move through the world, but influences how the world moves around them. You begin to realize something potent. Influence isn't about being liked. It's about being understood, or at times, being misunderstood in a manner that still fortifies your position. That's the paradox of perception. Sometimes when people can't fully decipher you, they begin to project strength onto you. The unknown, when paired with calmness, becomes authority. The person who can dwell comfortably in that space of being partially seen but fully aligned is the one others start to respect without instruction. It's tempting to correct every misinterpretation, to defend your intentions, to ensure everyone knows your true self. But that isn't mastery, that's insecurity masquerading as confidence. The Stoic doesn't need to correct every narrative because they know that over time, perception settles where truth has been consistent. Consistency is the true sculptor of reputation. Epictetus advised to first tell yourself what you wish to be, then do what you must do. When your behavior matches your vision, when your habits reflect your values, when your silence matches your strength, others take notice. Eventually, people cease watching your words and start reading your pattern. That's when perception becomes leverage. You no longer need to manage every impression. You've earned the space to be still, to be precise, to act without announcement. Because your presence now carries context, the context you've crafted through 100 silent decisions, and that context speaks before you do. So while others focus on visibility, the Stoic focuses on meaning. They know presence isn't about being seen everywhere. It's about being remembered when it counts. It's about becoming the reference point in a room, not the decoration. Achieve that when your presence is felt before your voice is heard, and you've accomplished something most never will. You've stopped chasing perception and started designing it. Those who master this don't drift through life unnoticed. They move with precision. Over time, people stop asking what they do and start reflecting on how they feel around them. That reflection, when shaped wisely, becomes a form of influence no one can replicate, because it wasn't manufactured. It was lived, built in silence, protected by integrity, and strengthened by the refusal to be anyone other than who you've already chosen to become. A quiet form of power doesn't announce itself. It doesn't chase attention or strive to fill silence with words. It simply waits, calm, watchful, deliberate. When it finally speaks, the entire room shifts, not because the words are louder, but because they arrive after everyone else has expended their energy trying to be heard. This leadership isn't rare because it's complex. It's rare because it demands discipline. The discipline to wait, to observe when the ego urges reaction, to speak only when your words advance the situation rather than merely decorate it. Some use speech to occupy space. Others use silence to define it. That's the distinction. Those who master this aren't avoiding engagement. They're preparing for it. Their quiet isn't emptiness, it's strategy. They don't withhold from uncertainty. They withhold to store momentum. When they finally decide to act or speak, the timing is so precise, it feels inevitable. That isn't merely communication. That's control, because the one who governs their voice governs the frame, and the one who governs the frame governs the meaning. In Stoicism, restraint isn't withdrawal, it's calibration. It's understanding that words carry mass. The more they're scattered, the lighter they become. The Stoic grasps that presence doesn't require volume, it requires intention. The most intentional person in the room is almost always the most powerful, even if they say the least. The world often mistakes stillness for passivity, But deliberate silence is not passivity, it's pressure. It's the gradual tightening of awareness until a single sentence pivots the entire conversation. It's the art of using fewer words to accomplish more. There's something disarming about an individual not rushed into reaction. They don't interrupt. They don't speak over others. They don't defend themselves needlessly. Yet they command respect, not by demanding it, but by creating an atmosphere where every word is deliberate. When they speak, it feels as if something significant is about to occur, not because of volume, but because of timing. That rhythm, that patience becomes their signature. It generates anticipation. In a world saturated with noise, silence becomes magnetic. Socrates stated that the beginning of wisdom is silence. That silence isn't avoidance, it's absorption. A wise leader listens not merely to respond, but to understand. They let others reveal intentions first. They collect patterns. They study the emotional tone of the space. Only when the time is right do they intervene. Not with opinions, but with direction. Because they waited, their message doesn't compete. It lands, it resonates, it settles in the minds of others like a seed awaiting the correct soil. Deliberate silence permits that impact because it teaches people to associate your voice with value, not noise. Most feel an uncomfortable urgency to respond instantly. They believe fast answers equal strength. But the strongest minds are never in a hurry to prove themselves. They understand silence can be its own communication, a boundary, a mirror, a filter. It makes others pause. It makes others reconsider. Over time, it builds a reputation that declares, "When I speak, it matters." Epictetus taught we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so we can listen twice as much as we speak. Those who live by that aren't trying to win arguments. They're mastering timing, and timing creates an influence arguments never will. There's a deep inner stillness in people who don't speak unless it improves the moment. They're not hiding. They're not afraid. They simply grasp that their energy isn't meant to be wasted. They've learned silence isn't something to fill, it's something to use. Use it well, and your words cease sounding like opinions and start sounding like decisions. That's what makes deliberate silence powerful. People begin to recognize the pattern. They know you won't interrupt. They know you won't speak unless it changes something. Because of that, they wait. They listen. They grant you the space others must fight for. Even in negotiation, silence is leverage. In leadership, it's direction. In conflict, it's clarity. In daily life, it's freedom. Because when you stop rushing to speak, you grant yourself time to think, to see, to decide. That window of reflection becomes your edge. It becomes the moment you catch what others miss, what they say in passing, what they reveal unknowingly. All of that becomes material you can use, not against them, but to advance matters when the time is right. Deliberate silence grants you that space. It gives you room to build power without appearing to chase it. A different level of respect is accorded to people who don't need to react. Their silence doesn't resemble hesitation. It resembles certainty. Seneca wrote, "It is a great thing to know the season for speech and the season for silence." Those who know that rarely need to raise their voice, because by the time they speak, the room is already aligned. They don't enter debates. They end them with clarity. They don't argue for influence. They wait until influence reveals itself in the space their silence created. This control is earned, not declared. It's the result of self-trust, of knowing your words are potent enough to shape the moment, but only if you don't spend them carelessly. Once you learn to hold your voice until it has purpose, your presence becomes sharper, more concentrated. The people around you stop expecting you to participate in every moment. They start watching for when you will. That change is subtle, but it changes everything. Deliberate silence isn't about being cold or distant. It's about being aware of the weight you carry and choosing to wield that weight with care. It's knowing not every situation requires your opinion, but the right moment might need your presence. It's about generating an energy that communicates, I don't speak because I need to. I speak because the moment is ready. In a world that runs on reaction, that kind of control is no longer just rare, it's unstoppable. There's a peculiar aspect of human nature. People claim they desire strength, but what they truly seek is relatability. We trust those who stumble just enough to feel human, not excessively, not so little they seem remote, but precisely enough to feel approachable. Herein emerges a concealed variety of power, controlled vulnerability. It's the craft of revealing flaws with precision, not to manipulate, not to deceive, but to allow others to see a version of you they can comprehend, while keeping the true depth safeguarded. It's a form of strategic honesty. Those who've mastered it know how to disclose what invites connection without surrendering what anchors control. Most overshare in the name of authenticity. They spill everything, hoping it fosters trust. But unfiltered vulnerability can be disorienting. It can erode confidence in your leadership. Stoic-minded individuals take a different path. They select their cracks deliberately. They let you witness a moment of failure, a past misstep, a personal challenge, but they wrap it in the context of growth. They present the fracture, then demonstrate the function it served. In doing so, they forge a sense of closeness without relinquishing the structure beneath their success. Carl Jung observed that people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. Those who lead from a Stoic center have already done that work. They don't bleed publicly to feel seen. They've bled in solitude and emerged with calm clarity. The most effective minds don't hide behind perfection. They don't pretend to be untouched by fear or failure, but they also don't drown others in raw exposure. They comprehend that strength isn't pretending nothing occurred. It's choosing the story you tell about it. A crack in the surface shown at the right moment becomes a mirror for others. It communicates, I've been there, I've failed, I've doubted, but I continued. That narrative draws people in, not because it's perfect, but because it displays resilience without collapse. Once people believe they've seen the full picture, they cease digging, they stop questioning. They assume the revealed flaw is the whole truth. But the strongest know the engine remains behind the curtain. When someone admits a mistake early, it disarms the audience. It lowers resistance. People relax when they no longer feel they're addressing a performance. They begin to trust, not because they've been told to, but because the person before them feels reachable. That's the moment the dynamic changes, and that's precisely where leverage expands. Not by appearing untouchable, but by appearing solid and self-aware. Epictetus said it's not what happens to you, but how you react that matters. Controlled vulnerability is how modern Stoics choose to react, not with denial, not with overexposure, but with a quiet, calculated display of truth that fortifies the foundation rather than shaking it. You needn't reveal your deepest pain to be genuine. You needn't cry publicly to be strong. What you need is the wisdom to know which parts of your story invite connection and which are meant for your own transformation. Those who build lasting influence understand credibility comes from knowing what not to share as much as from what you do. It's not about hiding. It's about filtering with clarity, about preserving internal stability so your external message lands with strength. In leadership, if you never admit mistakes, people don't trust your success. But if you admit too many, people doubt your direction. The key is equilibrium. A minor failure shared confidently can build more trust than a long resume. But that failure must serve the mission. It must reflect intention, not randomness. Most crucially, it must leave no doubt that the person who endured it is stronger now because of it. That's what Stoicism teaches, not to deny emotion, but to direct it. not to hide failure, but to use it. People admire those honest enough to admit they failed, but composed enough to never let those failures define them. That composure is the difference. That's the line between vulnerability and emotional chaos. You're not opening the gates to your soul. You're offering a window, clean and framed, through which people can see enough to believe in you. Seneca noted that difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body. But no one needs to watch you lift every weight. They just need to believe you've trained for the moment. This is why the most powerful presences often feel both human and untouchable simultaneously. You see the edges of their story, but you don't quite reach the core. That isn't manipulation, it's wisdom, it's understanding. People don't need to see everything to believe something. They just need consistency. When that consistency includes thoughtful imperfections, your image becomes both relatable and resilient. That's how perception becomes protection. There's another layer. When you reveal a flaw before others can point it out, you strip them of the power to use it against you. That move, quiet, humble, yet calculated, puts you in control of the narrative. You frame the story, you guide the tone, you determine how the audience feels. Aristotle observed that character may be called the most effective means of persuasion. Controlled vulnerability is character in motion. It's not merely what you reveal, it's how you reveal it and why. Eventually, people stop searching for cracks in your armor because the ones you showed them already told a complete story. Beneath those visible flaws lies something unspoken but deeply felt, a core not afraid to be seen, but wise enough to choose when and how. That's the chasm between exposure and power, between performance and presence, between noise and signal. Controlled vulnerability isn't about being raw for attention. It's about being honest with intention. It's about knowing your depth, facing your pain, and choosing how much of that pain serves the moment. It's about offering pieces of your journey that inspire rather than overwhelm. In doing so, you remain steady, you remain trusted, and more importantly, you remain whole, not in the absence of flaws, but in the mastery of how they're carried. Power isn't in hiding your cracks, but in choosing which ones to show. You needn't shout to sway the world. You needn't even be seen by all. What you do require is a narrative, a consistent story people can attach meaning to, because the most powerful aren't necessarily those who changed everything. They're those who convinced others how to perceive what was changing. They shaped belief. They shaped perception. In doing so, they shaped reality. That's the quiet strength behind every enduring presence. They're not merely operating in the world. They're operating on how people interpret it. Understand that, and you cease trying to be impressive and start becoming inevitable. A narrative isn't just a tagline, it's a rhythm, a philosophy, a structure of meaning that envelops your actions and provides direction. The strongest leaders don't move randomly, they move within a frame. Every public gesture, every repeated phrase, every value they embody becomes part of a larger pattern. Eventually, that pattern is no longer questioned. It's accepted. It becomes the lens through which everything else is viewed. That's when the story stops being yours and starts living in the minds of others. It begins shaping how they think, invest, behave, because they've been given a belief to organize around. People crave structure not just in systems, but in meaning. When offered a clear, repeatable story that makes them feel they comprehend what's happening, they attach themselves to it. Even if that story isn't wholly accurate, even if it's been curated with intention, what matters isn't whether every detail is factually perfect. What matters is whether the story holds under pressure, whether it can be repeated, defended, and aligned with identity. That's what makes it powerful. That's what makes it magnetic. The modern Stoic knows repetition isn't noise when it's grounded in consistency. It's reinforcement. Most react to the moment. They try to be everything everywhere at once, but that scattered visibility lacks core, lacks weight. What endures is identity. Not what you say once, but what you keep saying until the world starts saying it for you. That isn't manipulation, it's coherence. When your message, your behavior, and your mission all point in the same direction, your narrative becomes infrastructure. It becomes the unseen architecture supporting your influence. Like infrastructure, it's not always visible, but everything around it depends on it. This is why leaders build a story of customer obsession, of discipline, of long-term vision. Over time, that story becomes their shield, their rationale, their advantage. When misunderstood, the narrative explains it. When challenged, the narrative absorbs it. When they move in silence, the narrative fills the gap. Marcus Aurelius wrote to waste no more time arguing what a good person should be. Be one. The narrative is how that being becomes visible, how others know what you stand for without constant explanation. There's something deeply strategic about someone who knows what story they're telling. They're not merely reacting to trends. They're aligning every action to reinforce the image they've chosen. Not a false image, but a distilled one. A version of themselves that carries weight, clarity, and emotional gravity. That gravity draws people in. The more people orbit that story, the more energy it gains. It starts influencing without effort. People begin defending it, sharing it, living through it. That's when a narrative ceases being a message and becomes a system of belief. It's no accident the most powerful figures aren't always the most charismatic. Some are quiet, some are even awkward. But their narrative is sharp, it's clear, and it's anchored. Carl Jung said, "You are what you do, not what you say you'll do." But when what you do and what you say align, over time, you become undeniable. You become predictable in a way that comforts people. Comforting doesn't mean soft, it means stable. Stability is what people invest in, with their time, trust, or resources. If you consistently show up as the same version of yourself, a version that is disciplined, clear-minded, committed to something beyond performance, you needn't sell anything. You needn't chase credibility. It starts accumulating around you like bricks, until one day you're not merely seen, you're believed in. Not everyone reaches this because not everyone possesses the patience to tell the same story daily until it becomes real. They crave novelty, but novelty doesn't build infrastructure. Repetition does. Not empty slogans, but lived values, consistent tone, familiar rhythm. A potent narrative doesn't just protect you, it scales you. It lets others carry your message when you're absent. It trains perception. It creates momentum. Most importantly, it replaces uncertainty with clarity. That clarity becomes your reputation. Your reputation becomes the leverage you use to shape your surroundings. That's the Stoic maneuver. Not to control everything externally, but to master the one thing no one can take: your alignment. When your alignment is wrapped in a story others can feel, remember, and transmit, you cease being a figure. They start treating you like a foundation. Seneca wrote that good character, once established, is not easily overthrown. Narrative is how character becomes visible, not in loud declarations, but in the quiet accumulation of consistent action, the repetition of restraint, the pattern of purpose. If you wish to build something people rally around, you needn't shout. You need to anchor. You need to choose your values, repeat them with discipline, and align every decision with that direction. Over time, people won't just hear what you say, they'll feel what you mean. In that space between repetition and recognition, influence takes root. The world doesn't need more noise, it needs clarity. Clarity comes from living the story you want others to believe, again and again, until belief turns to trust, and trust turns to momentum. You needn't change the whole world. You just need to change what the world sees when it looks at you. Do that, and you don't chase gravity, you become it. Most rush to act the instant they feel inspired. The moment an idea forms, they want to launch it, declare it, broadcast it. But the wisest minds, those shaped by discipline, experience, a Stoic philosophy of patience, know the idea is only half the equation. The other half is timing. And timing isn't guessing, it's rhythm, not the rhythm of the market or the crowd, but the rhythm of readiness, yours and theirs. The most effective strategists don't merely ask, is this idea good? They ask, is the world ready to receive it? Because they comprehend that even brilliance falls flat when it arrives too early or too late. What looks like luck from outside is often the result of quiet observation, months, sometimes years of subtle tuning, watching not just for opportunities but for the softening of resistance. These individuals don't act merely when inspiration strikes. They act when conditions align, because they've learned through experience that momentum doesn't appear from nowhere. It's built slowly, deliberately, not through force, but through anticipation, through restraint. That restraint, uncomfortable as it may be, is often the chasm between failure and something unstoppable. The Stoic mind is trained to comprehend the weight of action. It isn't anti-movement, it's anti-impulse. There's a difference. Impulse burns fast and dies quickly. Alignment, conversely, moves with the weight of inevitability. When you act in alignment, you needn't convince anyone. The conditions you've prepared do the convincing. The pressure you've allowed to build beneath the surface gives your move impact. The silence you've maintained makes people listen more closely when you finally speak. This is influence in its most mature form. It doesn't scream for attention. It waits until the silence is loud enough that the message lands without resistance. Consider how anticipation builds value. When you don't reveal everything at once, when you hold back just enough, people lean forward. They begin to expect. Expectation, nurtured carefully, becomes an energy money can't buy. That's why those who speak too soon often fall flat, while those who speak with rhythm seem to shift everything with a sentence. Carl Jung noted the least of things with a meaning is worth more in life than the greatest of things without it. Meaning doesn't just come from content, it comes from timing. The right words at the wrong time are noise. The right move made too early creates confusion. But when timing and message align, people don't merely hear you, they remember you. That isn't magic, it's design. It's the reward of those who wait, not passively, but intentionally. Timing isn't delay for its own sake. It's about stacking variables until the outcome becomes almost inevitable. It's knowing when the culture is bending toward your direction, when the resistance in a person's mind is softening, when your own clarity has sharpened enough to cut through noise. The Stoic strategist understands a move made under pressure must not be hurried. It must be prepared. When that preparation meets the right window, what follows feels effortless, even if it took years to earn. There's a power that comes from not needing to act just because you can, from being able to wait without anxiety, to watch the world sprint and stumble while you observe patterns, behaviors, emotions, not to manipulate them, but to recognize when they're ready, ready to hear, ready to shift, ready to follow. When that readiness is sensed, your movement lands like gravity, not suggestion, because you've aligned your action with conditions, not merely emotions. This awareness can't be feigned. It comes from knowing yourself deeply enough to resist your own urgency, from being willing to appear foolish for waiting, from ignoring the crowd when they say, "You should have moved already." But they don't see what you see. They don't feel what you feel. They haven't spent time building pressure in silence. When the moment arrives, they call it luck. But it wasn't luck, it was rhythm. It was you understanding the terrain better than they did. Seneca wrote, "It is not because things are difficult that we do not dare. It is because we do not dare that things are difficult. But daring doesn't mean rushing. It means knowing when the move is not just bold, but wise. When silence has served its purpose. When preparation has matured into inevitability. When that moment arrives, there's no hesitation, because you're not improvising. You're executing something you've been silently rehearsing longer than anyone knows. Most don't train for timing, they train for reaction. They respond quickly, hoping speed compensates for lack of depth. But speed without awareness is waste. The Stoic doesn't fear missing a moment, they fear forcing one. That fear keeps them focused, not frozen. Because they know when the moment is real, the move will be obvious. That patience creates space for sharper action, not slower but sharper. Over time, this builds trust. People learn that when you act, it matters. That your silence isn't hesitation, it's calibration. When your moves are few but meaningful, your influence compounds. You become known not just for what you do, but for when you do it. That reputation becomes part of your rhythm. That rhythm becomes your signal in a world overwhelmed with noise. This is the discipline behind quiet strength. It's not about delaying life, it's about mastering its flow. Knowing timing isn't merely something you wait for, it's something you build slowly, carefully, without panic. When alignment is real, even the smallest step can shift the entire landscape. Most spend their lives stretching in every direction, trying to emulate those they admire, copying what works, chasing another's version of power. In doing so, they exhaust themselves. They dilute their focus. They become a little of everything and masters of nothing. The strongest minds don't operate this way. They don't try to become something they're not. They start by identifying what's already within, then refine it with brutal honesty. They know self-knowledge isn't soft introspection, it's strategy. Because once you know your nature, you cease pretending, you cease forcing. That shift liberates an enormous amount of energy previously wasted on fitting in. There's something profoundly grounding about someone who knows who they are, not as an image, but as a rhythm. Someone who needn't explain themselves because their actions already have. Someone who doesn't mimic trends, doesn't pursue misaligned opportunities, doesn't apologize for their approach because it's rooted in stability. That clarity is rare, not because it's complicated, but because most never slow enough to ask the deeper questions. They build strategies before building self-awareness. The Stoic path flips that entirely. Strategy is the outcome of knowing who you are, not the reverse. Carl Jung called the privilege of a lifetime to become who you truly are. That may sound philosophical, but in practice, it's deeply tactical. Once you understand your temperament, impulses, emotional triggers, strengths, you can build systems around them. You don't resist your nature, you channel it. If chaotic by nature, you don't shame it, you direct it. You turn chaos into momentum by anchoring it to a mission. If disciplined, you build rhythm into your days until your schedule becomes a second spine. If patient, you learn to weaponize that patience, not as passivity, but as timing. The point isn't to become someone else. It's to become so aligned with your nature that everything you do feels inevitable. This is where power becomes deeply sustainable. Not loud, not performative, but real. Because you're not constantly battling yourself. You're not trying to suppress what's natural. You're learning to channel it. Once you do, your external results start matching your internal wiring. That alignment creates consistency. Consistency becomes identity. Eventually, people stop seeing your efforts and start feeling your presence. Not because you've mastered everything, but because you've ceased leaking energy through contradiction. What you say, believe, and how you behave all stem from the same root. That makes you unshakable, not in perfection, but in integrity. The Stoics weren't interested in being all things. They were interested in being one thing well. They knew inner stability is more valuable than external applause, that most crumble not because the world is too heavy, but because their identity is too scattered. So they asked themselves again and again, who am I truly? What would remain if everything was stripped away? That's where true power begins. Because if you can operate from that place, you're no longer building your life around reputation or perception. You're building it from the inside out. Once the inside is stable, the outside starts bending to match it. Epictetus said to know first who you are and then adorn yourself accordingly. That isn't a call for self-indulgence. It's a call for precision, a reminder that imitation is expensive and authenticity is efficient. When you know your nature, you stop wasting time on paths never meant for you. You stop borrowing confidence from others' blueprints. Instead, you build your own frame quietly, piece by piece, until it fits you so perfectly no one else can wear it. That frame becomes your advantage, not because it's flashy, but because it works, because it endures, because it's real. In a world of constant comparison, staying true to yourself sounds like a soft principle, but it's the hardest, most strategic move you can make. It requires rejecting the noise telling you to be more this or less that. It means staying in your lane even when another's looks faster. It's trusting depth will always outlast speed. That permanence comes from understanding, not performance. Over time, the person who knows who they are becomes harder to move, not because they resist change, but because they integrate it without losing their center. This self-mastery isn't about knowing everything. It's about knowing what you need, what triggers you, what restores you, which environments elicit your best, which poison your clarity. It's about designing your systems around that awareness, so every decision, habit, and move is filtered through alignment. When that alignment becomes habitual, you stop trying to get back on track. You are the track. Staying on it is no longer about willpower. It becomes a byproduct of your environment. That isn't accidental, that's design. Over time, this way of moving through the world makes you not just effective, but trustworthy. People sense when someone is aligned. They sense when confidence comes from understanding, not imitation. They respond to it. They feel safer around it. They believe in it, not because you ask them to, but because they can feel your life isn't reacting. It's driven. That drive needn't shout. It needn't explain itself. It just keeps moving with purpose, with rhythm, and without apology. Aristotle said, knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. Wisdom paired with clarity becomes leverage, not the kind that manipulates others, but the kind that bends time, focus, and energy around what truly matters. Self-knowledge becomes the filter protecting your momentum. When others are burning out trying to be everything, you'll still be standing, because you chose to be yourself fully, unapologetically, and built systems to make that choice sustainable. That's the quiet strength no one can take. It needn't be flashy. It just needs to be real. When it is, you don't chase identity. You live it. You don't manage your image. You embody it. You stop exhausting yourself trying to catch up and start watching your life unfold on terms that truly belong to you. Because at the core of every powerful presence is a mind that's done the work of knowing itself and built a life that protects what it found. Authentic power isn't about becoming someone else. It's about remembering who you are and choosing to live as if it matters. The most unshakable people you'll meet aren't chasing the world. They're anchored in something deeper, something still, something true. If that's your path, or you wish it to be, there's another video ready for you now. Watch it and continue constructing the kind of mind that requires no permission to lead. Thank you for being here and for being part of Stoic Mindset Mastery. If this perspective resonated, please support the channel by hitting the like button. It genuinely helps Stoic Mindset Mastery reach others on the same journey.